Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It's Ferris, and how are y'all doing today? Well, with me, I don't know if you noticed, I've got a pretty heavy jacket on right now. Where I'm at, it's about 45 degrees. And if you hear a little wind noise with it, yeah, the wind's blowing about 10 to 15 miles an hour on top of that. So we were looking at about 40 degrees with the wind chill factor. Even it may be even colder than that. I'm not sure, but I know one thing: my hands are freezing. My hands are really freezing. Okay. But anyways, we're back out here again. This is the second part that we are doing with this 2012 Ranger 800 crew. Now, if you've seen my previous video on this Ranger, it's been a few videos back, a few months ago. On part one, we had to pull the motor out of this thing and have it rebuilt. The engine was locked up in it. It was no good, so we had to pull it out and disassemble it, have it rebuilt. Now in this video, this is part two, we're gonna go back together with this one. We got the motor back and we got it all back together, and it was a long drawn out process, but well worth the effort on this unit. So here we go. Here's the video of what all was done to this Polaris Ranger 800 crew. Well, here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the brand new engine for the Ranger 800 that I'm working on. We got it back and got the block and the head put together and everything. I've started putting the components back into this engine here. If you notice, there's some gears on this side. Now on this side here, up in the upper right hand corner, the biggest gear, the shiniest gear, is the oil pump. We've put a new oil pump in it, as well as other components in this engine. And also on this engine, we have to get the markings for the gears in the proper places. If you notice some little dots right there, they have to be in those proper places. Now, you have the crank gear, which is this shaft right here, and then the camshaft is this part, and then this other gear is the balance shaft in this engine, and it all has to be in a proper order, in a proper sequence, lined up with those dots for it to work properly. If it's off, it will either not run or cause catastrophic damage inside the engine for these parts that are inside of it. Now if we look around here on this side, I've already installed new motor mounts. That's what these are. These are the motor mounts for this engine. Now, this engine does not sit straight up and down like this. It sits kind of at a 45-degree angle. So there's a bracket that's going to go on here, which mounts it into the unit. Up here, we've got a new exhaust manifold on the head. New gasket, new exhaust manifold. The old manifold had been welded up so bad and it was in bad shape, and we decided to replace it. And it's going to get an exhaust shield on top too once we get it in the unit. If we go around this side here, I've installed the crank position sensor there, cleaned it up and put it on there. I cleaned up the oil filled tube right there also. It was dirty, and we put a new seal down on the bottom where it goes into. Here is where all the coolant, or some of the coolant flows anyways. The housing houses the thermostat. So we put a new thermostat in it, and then we also put a new temperature sensor as well, because I don't want this thing to be reading the wrong specifications as far as temperature, because that's why this thing in the first place burned up, because it got too hot. Also, we installed new push rods. Now the push rods are these right here that go down to the lifters in the bottom of the crankcase. So we put new push rods. We've got new rocker arms in it, and so we're coming along quite well with this engine. The next thing I'm working on is the cover that goes right here on the side of the engine. And if we go over here, that's what I'm working on right now, is this cover. Now this cover has a few seals that go into it around the shafts. There's two seals that go in this location here. There's one on this side, and there's one up to the bottom as well. One's to seal off the coolant as well as the oil too. And then we have the seal for the crankshaft to go with it as well. And then on the other side, this is where the water pump is going to go right here. And then there's a housing that goes right here with a seal as well. And then I forgot to show y'all on this back side, there's a gasket that goes right here along the outside portion of that where it mounts to the block. So there's quite a few little parts that is all going together. And then once I get this plate back on, there's the coil and stator that go, not the coil, but it's the stator that goes on this side along with the flywheel and a cover that goes over that. I'll show you all when I get to that point and have it all assembled. All right, y'all, guess what? I screwed up. Yes, I admit it, I screwed up. As y'all probably seen on the earlier part of the video, there may be something different on that engine than what is supposed to be on that engine. I got some components mixed up on this engine, okay? I'm not gonna lie, I'm not perfect, but I will admit, when I screw up, I will admit that I screwed up and I will make it right. Let me show you what I'm talking about on this engine. We've got this engine pretty much back together, but I screwed up. Let me show you. So here's what the engine looks like, all pretty much back together before we put it in the unit. As you can see, I've got the cover for the stator right there. That's all back together. And this cover here is for the water pump. And there's a hose that goes on it right there, coming from the radiator. Now, as you can see, there's something a little different on this engine right below that exhaust manifold from the earlier part of this video. Yes, there's a bracket there, and that's where I screwed up. Those motor mounts that was previously on the engine do not go there where that bracket goes. These motor mounts go on the end of the bracket right there on each side. And they also mount to the frame of the unit as well. So that's the part that I told y'all that I screwed up. But luckily I was able to remove those motor mounts and put the bracket right where it belongs, right there on the engine block. So I've got the bolt started on it, and now all I gotta do is just tighten it up. And that's all it is. That's all it takes to finish up this engine. Now, let's go drop it in the unit and see if we can hook everything up and see what happens from here. This is what the new engine looks like in the Ranger 800 Crew. I know you can't see very much of it anymore because we've got everything hooked up to it. We've got the injectors in it, we've got spark plug wires, we've got the intake manifold and everything that goes there. The exhaust is all hooked up. Now if you remember, that was a new manifold on the front of this. And we also wound up replacing the shield that goes on top of it as well. We also put new springs right there, as well as new donuts at the connections here, as well as all the way in the back where the muffler connects. So now what I'm going to do, now I got everything bolted in place up here with the motor mounts as well as in the back, I'm going to go ahead and continue putting this part of the engine all together. Now over here goes there's a shield that's going to go on first, then the drive clutch and drive clutch on the engine, as well as the driven clutch on the transmission, and then the belt, and then there's a clutch cover that goes over everything. So that's all going to take place back here, and then there's a container that goes in this square space for storage there. And if you look up here in the front, I'll show you what we did up here in the front. I had to take the whole front end apart to do a little bit of work up here. We had to put a new radiator in this unit. Now the old radiator is sitting over here. Here's the reason why we had to put a new radiator. The old radiator is all clogged up. You can see there's a bunch of dirt. It's all clogged up. It's not going to allow air to pass through it. So we wound up going ahead and replacing the radiator because we have a new engine and we need that thing to be cooled by a new radiator. I also took the liberty while I had the radiator out is checking the fan in order to make sure it works. So I wired up the fan while it was out, and it does come on as well. So let's put this whole thing back together and see if this thing will move under its own power. Are finally all back together with this Ranger. It's been a long, drawn-out process on this thing, but it's well worth the effort and all the time that we've put into it. We've got the clutches put back on, the cover over the clutches. We even put the storage container back in where it goes, and made sure all the fluids were good in it, the oil as well as the coolant. And I even put the front end back together to where it looks like a normal looking vehicle now. And also I went ahead under the hood here, after we have all that back together, we put another battery in it. The old battery was not holding a charge, and I had to keep boosting it for this thing to start up and run. Well, there you go, folks. That was all that we did to the Polaris Ranger 800 here. Like I said, it was a long, drawn-out process, and we had quite a bit of fun putting this thing back together. Would I do another one? Yeah, I'd probably do another one. It'd probably be a little quicker this time, knowing what I know now. Even though I've done these before, it's just the way things happened, you know, with everything going on, trying to get parts and everything else. But we got it all back together. It's running, and pretty soon the customer is going to be using it. They are going to have to bring it back within about 10 to 15 hours of use, because we still have the break-in oil in the engine. So after, you know, that amount of time with the break-in oil, it's going to have to come back, and we're going to put the normal oil that goes in it with a new filter as well. I thank everybody for watching. If you made it this far, I'm still doing the giveaway for the $50 when I hit 50 subscribers. Now, an update on the subscribers, I'm up to, get ready, are you ready for this? I am up to 42 subscribers. We're getting really close, and I think before the end of the year we're going to hit 50 subscribers. So by the time I hit 50 subscribers, I'm going to give away $50 to a lucky viewer. Now the catch is, you have to comment on one of my photos or DM me on Instagram. Also, you have to send me a comment here on Fearless Fly 100, and that's the catch. Other than that, tell all your friends, your coworkers, your dogs, your cats, your animals, whomever, about Fearless Fly 100 here on YouTube. Well, thank everybody for watching. Y'all be safe, y'all stay warm, and we'll catch y'all in the next video.